Greetings, you guys. I'm tired. Staying up with y'all for 7 hours, running my mouth yesterday. Wore my ass out. I'll be honest. I will be honest. As you wore my ass out. Okay. I got shit to do today that I don't want to do. But here I am. My name is Cassandra-Floyd, also known as the Daughter of the Fates, founder of the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. And I have been getting many comments from you guys on last night's live. I also very much appreciate the timestamps that you guys have been sending, because I'm in handy, because I was dropping dimes last night. And I've been going back to listen to some of those channelings from the mother last night via the timestamps that y'all have sent. So that's been really helpful. And eventually I'll get to like adding the timestamps, because there was a lot of gold last night. There was a lot. I sat there and re-listened to the section where I was talking about oh my God. How do we say you dropped a whole FDIC bank? Now let us wheel in the money to match, okay? Let us call in the money to match, baby. But anyway, yeah, that damn, man, it was just straight off the cuff, just straight out the dome. This damn breakdown I went into about how he got played by Daenerys Targaryen. That shit was gangster. I saw this TikTok the other day. This young woman was talking about, what the hell do y'all? This young woman was talking about this study she had just read about how what was the study? About how she thought she had been going crazy, but she found a study that thank you for that, Tajli. I accept that shit. She said it was a totally impromptu dissertation. I damn sure accept that. Now let me get paid for it. We need to be breaking this shit down. I done already, in this process, I done already delivered about 4 or 5 books. We need to get on this shit. Anyway, she was talking about how she felt totally seen by the study, totally like vindicated by the study. And essentially the study was talking about how there is actually they have actually shown through these studies that they've actually shown that let me write this down before I forget it. God damn. The study actually showed that people, how did she say it? People respond. I don't want to misquote, but people will respond with hatred. People will respond with hatred when confronted with a situation where they are having a conversation with someone who is smarter than they are, someone that they perceive is more intelligent than they are, that they will respond with hatred. Yeah, I had a conversation with this woman. This is the second time we had a discussion, because we were in like a group setting, right? Homegirl wanted me to meet her homegirl. The first time I met this woman, I do what I always do, giving niggas the benefit of the doubt. I, you know, I basically placed my frustration with that conversation. I placed my frustration within the context of, okay, I know why I'm frustrated. It is obviously a cultural difference. This sister is from another country. I said, so the communication is as such that's got me annoyed as fuck. But I gotta ease back, I gotta pull back, because it's just a cultural difference. It's like a communication style. It's a cultural difference. And I should not be annoyed by this conversation. Giving niggas the benefit of the doubt, because I always do. And overall, she was quite lovely, quite nice. But when the conversation got deep at all, when it was anything deep, when it was superficial, when it was just like, oh yeah, where are you from? Da, 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 da. It was fine. Very, very lovely, very nice. When it got deep at all, it felt like I, at 50, was having a conversation with an 18-year-old trying to prove that me at 50 is stupid and couldn't possibly know anything. And she at 18 had already become an enlightened genius, a sage, or something. Right? This is our first conversation. And so I kept finding myself, because I told y'all, not only do I not debate with men, I don't debate. What did Dr. John Henrik Clarke say? I want y'all to take this to heart. But actually, take it how you want to. Take it how you want to. But Dr. John Henrik Clarke used to be called into these scenarios all the time. I wouldn't have gone to the shit in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. Dr. John Henrik Clarke, who had spent his entire existence studying in a scenario, in a world that was completely antagonistic to him learning about himself, learning about where he comes from, learning about the history of his people, learning about what we had to contribute to humanity, what we had contributed to humanity. He lived in a period where people were violently antagonistic to Black people learning anything about themselves. And so he dedicated his entire existence to learning everything he possibly could about us. You feel me? And so white people in particular, Jewish white people even more particular, had an affinity for inviting him into spaces and intellectual, learned, scholarly places. Had an affinity for calling him into the space because everybody recognized Dr. John Henrik Clarke as a master teacher. And he would go into these spaces with, people who had graduated from Harvard and, what's the other big one in England? I can't remember. But he would accept these invitations to debate, right? Now, of course, the way that they were, presented was that these were going to be scholarly discussions. But they were debates, child. There was debates. White people want to do what white people do is to prove black people don't know shit, right? And there was one video of Dr. John Henrik, Oxford and Cambridge. Thank you. There was one discussion that he was involved in where he was the only black panelist in this scholarly discussion, and there were two white men. One was a Jew from here, and then one was a Jew from, I think, England or some shit. I don't remember what the topic of discussion was, but there was a point in this debate, in this quote discussion, where finally Dr. John Henrik Clarke cut the speaker off, cut one of the gentlemen off, and said, "Look, I will have this conversation with you, but it will not be a debate." He said, "Because I only debate my equals. Everyone else I teach. I only debate what did he say? I do not debate with anyone but my equals. Everyone else I teach. Everyone else I teach." This is what he's telling the Oxford graduate and the Harvard graduate, the Jewish scholars. He's like, "Look, I'm not debating with y'all because I only debate with my equals. Everybody else I teach." You understand? Yes, he did, Janet. Yes, he did. And so I'm having this discussion with this woman. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not intimidated at all. 0% with those whom I step into space with. And it is obvious in an instant to me that in our interaction, in this interaction we about to have, I'm the student and they the teacher. I need to shut up and listen. I don't have no problem. 0%. 0%. I do not have a problem at all when I enter into a space with someone that I know good and goddamn well is smarter than I am. And if they're smarter than I am, what does that automatically mean to me? If they're smarter than I am, they got some shit I need to know. Else we wouldn't even be in the room together. They got some shit I need to know. And so this young woman telling me about this damn study that I'm going to find and I'm going to read so I can see what the hypothesis was, what the execution of the study was, and what the conclusion was, definitively. But when she said that, it made me think about a lot. It made me think about the perpetual dumbing down of American human beings. It made me think about the last 40 years of the dumbing down of the U.S. population to facilitate very specific and strategic goals, like this bullshit that we just walked into with a Trump presidency. That shit could only happen in a population that had been methodically over a period of time being strategically dumbed down. There's too many people who've talked about it. I told you about the brain surgeon I interviewed years ago who, he was a brain surgeon, but he was like, "Look, when I'm up in y'all skull and shit trying to save y'all life, physically in your brain matter, not in your consciousness, not in your conscious, in your subconscious, physically in your brain matter, I can see the evidence of the 40 years of poisoning the human population's food supply to literally dumb down their intellect, and corresponding with the conditions of the brain matter that I'm witnessing are the statistics over decades that talk about the negative impact vis-a-vis the gradual but obvious decline in the average American's IQ since the 1970s. Why they do that? Why they do that? You know what I'm saying? And he's saying the reason they do that is because human beings in this country are meant to be exploited, and you cannot exploit a thinking, reasoning human population. That's what the brain surgeon said. You feel me? And so I know I just said a lot, but I think that even this study that this young woman was talking about how people's response when confronted in space with intelligence is hatred. I said, I don't know. I think there's something more to that, because that's not what I experienced. And I can't say, maybe when I was younger, maybe when I didn't know nothing, maybe when I was like in my 20s, like, yep, I was a little bit of a dick. When I first joined the party and there are all these elders, you feel me, trying to teach me some shit. And I'm always trying to prove how much I know when I didn't know shit. You feel me? I think that might be I think that then, just looking back, it may have been just my innate kind of rebellion against authority. I didn't want nobody telling me shit. You feel me? Especially if it was gonna come off like I was stupid, and just because you know more than me. So I had a natural kind of like rebellious nature towards, especially the elderly. Because when I joined the party, you talking about, quote, veteran organizers. These motherfuckers, by the time I joined the party, was already in their 60s. They had been doing revolutionary movement work since they was in their 20s. They was already in their 60s. The chairman was already 65 when I joined the party. And aside from him, couldn't nobody else at the party tell me shit. I was an asshole. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know some things. I majored in African American studies. They was like, bitch, shut up. Oh my God, man. My introductory years in the party, they stayed grinding my ass up. Like, bitch, you don't know shit. You don't know nothing. Bless your heart. You feel me? That you don't know nothing. Bless your heart. I didn't buck for too long. But that first year maybe that I was in the party, I made my introduction into the party more difficult than it had to be, because again, I think that also because I had been acculturated for so long within white spaces, even though I'm chocolate as the day is long, I had always had a majority of white friends in middle school and in high school. I always had majority white friends. I had a handful of black friends here and there, but overwhelmingly my friends had been white. And so I am certain that some of my resistance to hearing, learning from, and taking direction from black militant elders was that whiteness, that acculturated whiteness in myself resisting black direction. I'm just giving it to you blood raw. This is an assessment I can make of myself as I have learned how whiteness impacts us all. Whiteness is not simply an affliction of those born with white skin. Whiteness, if you can say that whiteness is a construct, right? That you can say that whiteness is a construct, that race is a construct, and that whiteness as a construct is synonymous with purity and goodness and blemishlessness. You understand? Then and superiority, right? And you grow up as one who is overwhelmingly in friendships and intimate relationships with human beings who are the physical personification of the construct of whiteness, along with the spiritual, the conscious, the emotional, the psychological construct of whiteness, then it only makes sense that your proximity to so much whiteness, your presentation in the world, how you see the world, how you understand your relationships, are going to be based on this proximity and this affinity that you have with white people. And that was me. I'll be honest. I'll tell you, in my honesty, in my acculturation in the white world, and I will say this too, I have become a better friend to my childhood friends once I became myself. Once my true nature was freed, was liberated from the confines, the social confines of being Black and white spaces. Once I became free to be my true me, I became a better friend to my white childhood friends, because a lot of the people that I grew up with that are white, that I grew up with, that I have like childhood defining relationships with, are still friends with me today. They're still friends of mine today. They are still people that I love very dearly and very greatly. And they have been friends with me as I've walked through all of these different phases and changes and stages in my adult life. Even remained friends with me as I was a hardcore, very outwardly uninhibited critiquer of whiteness, Black nationalist revolutionary. Still check on me on my birthday, call me no matter wherever I moved. My absolute best friend from 8th grade till we graduated just called me a couple of weeks ago when these fires jumped off and asked if there was anything that he could do. Brandon O'Neill Arnold. You feel me? And so, but what happened is, as a Black person acculturated in these spaces, without a social, political understanding, historical understanding of who we were as Black people in the world, in those relationships, my default was to lean into the behavior and characteristics and even the speaking of these white people that I was friends with. My voice was different. The way I spoke was different. Stop. The way I spoke was different. The way I moved in the world was different. And it was based, all of those things, the way I spoke, the way I everything was based on my interaction with, and how we are subconsciously trained as Black people to adjust our mannerisms and everything when we are in the company of white people. We may not even be conscious of it. It wasn't even nothing I was thinking about when I was a kid. Even as Black people around me were like, why you act white? Why you talk white? Why you do that? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, it's just how I am. You know what I mean? Well, I'm telling you. And so I get super annoyed when I hear that, when I see, hear, witness those things in other Black people. I get annoyed, not angry or anything like that, but I get annoyed because even though they say exactly the same thing that I did when I was a kid about, it's just how I was raised. It was just how my parents taught me how to speak. I'm not trying to act white. It's just how I am. It's just how I speak, right? I'm telling y'all, yeah, if to be a fly on the wall of my teenage years, y'all have been there's Cassandra, right? And so some of us will say, especially those of us who have any white acculturation, will say that it is it's just, quote, how we are. But this happens not only with Black people. Every race of people that come to the United States, why is it that when they learn English, why is it that when they learn to speak the language, the way that they learn to speak the language is through the lens and presentation of the white world? Asian people are really, really, really striking when they do that. But Mexican people out here do that too. That when they begin to learn the language, they want to learn the language through the perspective of who they think the dominant race is out here. That's why we learn to speak white. It is this inherent kind of acceptance that if we are more white adjacent, no matter how Black we is, that if we learn to speak the language the way the white people understand it, that it might afford us some privilege that others are not entitled to. That's not a conscious decision that we make. It is a collective cultural, social understanding that we have been forced to accept. And we all do it. I'm a teenager. I'm 10, 11, 12. The first time I make my first dear, dear white friend. You feel me? And my knee-jerk response as a 10-year-old, not because I'm deep and analytical and shit. It is because we, no matter how much information we don't have access to, we are always analyzing the world around us and what's going to keep us safe and what's going to make our life better and what's going to make our life worse. And if me as a little black girl in Alabama living in a trailer park, in a hood trailer park, right, with everybody else who poor as I am, but then all these little white girls are wanting to be my friend because there's something they see in me, there is a willingness to be in space with them that they see in me. You feel me? There is a willingness to be in space with me, right? With them that they see in me. And so they peep that. And they're like, oh, Cassandra, you're not like all the other black people. And then as a 10-year-old black girl, poor and living in a trailer park, I'm like, oh, maybe I am special, right? And so and at 10 years old, I'm telling you my life right now. Seeing it is clear as day in my mind's eye right now. The first little girl I made friends with, her name was Christy. I was in the 10th grade. I mean, I was 10 years old. And she latched onto me instantly. We were best friends. And in this relationship with this little girl, there were privileges as a little black girl that came with being friends with this little upper middle class white girl. There were privileges that came with that. She would buy me cute little gifts. She would buy me the cute little, you remember them separation pencils, them little pencils where once the lead went down, you could take the little tab out and another little pencil lead would come out that was sharp. And they would have like Hello Kitty and shit on it. You know, she would buy me little pencils, or every time her mother bought her things, she would say, buy another one so I can give one to Cassandra, right? There were privileges that came with my little white best friend, Christy. There were perpetual privileges. Now, of course, I can go back into my childhood and analyze this, you know, from where I am now, not knowing anything about that as a kid, but keeping it in my memory banks for whatever reason, it would eventually be necessary again. And so there were quite a few black friends that I had, but they did not hold the space in my life that my white friends held. They didn't. And also my language, the way that I spoke. Now, I always spoke quote unquote proper. And that was because my dad taught me how to read, and he was militant about the way we spoke, me and my sister. No, it was the. He was very, very deliberate about how we articulated words. I'm telling you, when I say militant about it, I said the instead of the one time when I was asking him for something. And he stopped cold and he looked at me and he grabbed my ear and pinched my ear and pulled my ear. So he said, how many times do I have to tell you? There is no such word as the. I'm sorry, Daddy. I'm sorry. The. He spoke. And I can tell you, looking back on that was the way that he internalized that we had to master the language in a way that white people would respect. That's what he had internalized. We had to master the language in a way that white people respect, in a way that would entitle us to something that otherwise we poor black people would not be entitled to. So I always talked proper, even as a young child. But it wasn't until I started attracting white friends in middle school. Yeah, in middle school, and up through high school that my articulation um, of the language, it wasn't just, quote, the correct enunciation of words, aka proper. It wasn't just that, because when I was proper, I just enunciated. You see what I'm saying? My acculturation was my family. That's it. My enunciation was what was deemed proper. It was not until I started attracting white friends that my delivery of the language was obviously white adjacent. You understand what I'm saying? And so, and then recognizing right away, no matter what space I went to, because once you attract one white friend and they see that you the safe Negro, then magically you start attracting more and more and more white friends, because that one white friend has signaled to the others, oh, she's safe. She's like us, as much like us as she can be. Right? And now, of course, this is an analysis of my of the peculiarities of my childhood, and I leaned into that. Plus, that acculturation also came because our primary language as children was music. At least, you know, me being Generation X, our primary method of communication in childhood and in our teen years was music. Like you could know everything that you needed to know about a person, their behavior, their characteristics, their character flaw, everything you need to know about a person, you could know by their top 10 favorite musicians. Everything you need to know, everything you needed to know about a human, you could know by knowing the top 10 favorite musicians or bands of theirs. It can tell you everything you need to know. And so, because especially music in our time was so political, even if it was jamming, everything was so political. It was our primary method of communication, and my acculturation, even though I grew up with Black parents and Black music, I still loved, and I was a musician. So I think that played a role in the widening or the broadening of my music and taste. But I loved it all. If it had a beat, if it had a jam, if it had an edge, I was about it. And so I started getting into in my acculturation with these white friends that I started to attract, much more rebellious music, punk and heavy metal and hardcore and all the things, all the things. If it was anything remotely on some fuck the system shit, I was with it. I didn't give a fuck if they were screaming. I didn't care. If it was any way, if it resonated to this growing, seething, rebellious entity inside of me, I'd feed that bitch. I would feed the monster in me that was longing for rebellion, right? I'm telling y'all this because I'm circling back to this conversation that I had with this woman, circling back to these discussions and what I felt like in hindsight or in retrospect may have contributed to my initial resistance to receiving direction from Black, old, mostly women. Most of the people in the party that were in positions of leadership were elder women. There were some elder men, but elder women in particular in the beginning, that first year, were the ones that I always found myself in conflict with. And in hindsight, I know that one, ageism may very well have had something to do with it. Y'all gotta let me know if I'm still here because I'm having some kind of disruption with my my Wi-Fi. Somebody just give me a thumbs up if you're still up on here. Thank you guys. Thank you, Victory, for the compliment. That's very sweet. I feel like I don't know where this is coming from, but I feel like it is something that needs to be shared today. because it's important to tell you all the time who I am, and the me that I am has a history that has contributed to who I am, and that I remember so vividly, so I can teach from those memories, and how my now helps me to understand what were oddities about me growing up, and as my relationships changed. And so I know that it was the acculturated white arrogance, even more than ageism. Um, I am convinced that it was my white acculturation that was coming through once I'm in an organization where I am spending a lot more time in an organization that is predominantly Black. There were white people in the organization, but obviously, as a Black Power organization, majority of the people in the organization were Black. And then anybody there that was white, they were solidarity forces. So anyway, this is important to mention because it wasn't until I was doing work with the party that I started to recognize these moments that there was no explanation for in my childhood. These interactions that I'd had based on my proximity to white people and white culture, that and why a lot of the time I felt uncomfortable with Black people, Black males in particular, my own age. There was just a lot, and my childhood, I had evaded, like a lot of people do, especially my teenage years. I had evaded for a long time, until I had a different understanding about what was being taught to me about my childhood, right, and being in these spaces. The other thing is, in this conversation that I had with this woman that frustrated me so, because she she is from another country, African, but via that country to a European country where she did a lot, I think she moved there when she was a teenager and was, educated there, and then coming still young to the United States. And some of the things that she said that night were so reminiscent. And I think she's closer to my age than not. But some of the things that she said in our first conversation were extremely reminiscent of some of these things I used to say myself when confronted with Black people who were saying shit like, "Why you talk like a white girl? Why you act like a white girl?" She was having the same responses, though that wasn't the nature of our conversation at all. She was volunteering this in her critique of American Blacks, in her criticism of American Black people. She was saying those same things that had been said to me as a young woman, as a teenager, in my cultural, social relationships with white people. And this woman is my age, and she's been here for quite a number of years now, 20-something years now. So that stood out. I was like, okay. Then the other thing that frustrated me about the conversation, because that didn't frustrate me, it sent me back to that period in my life where that was something that was not uncommon for me to say, when people would say, "Why you talk like white girl? Why you act like..." It's just how I am, right? Then, and that didn't necessarily frustrate me, but it did remind me right away of like these critiques that I had received in school, but they didn't stick with me. Like, I wasn't, They didn't stick with me, these critiques. You know what I'm saying? And that's because once my consciousness changed as a consequence of being in a Black Power organization, once my consciousness changed, and my consciousness changed based on a coming into contact with true lived Black history, lived as in these veterans who had been members of the Black Liberation Army, of the Black Panther Party, of JOMO, of all of these well-established veteran organizations who hadn't been learned through the history books, had lived the history that we were all learning about in college. They lived that history. They were up in the thick of the shit when the state was cracking down on these organizations, going underground, going out the country. This was lived history right here, right? And so once my understanding of our history and the impact that our people have had on the world, not only on this country, on the world, changed, once my understanding of the value that we had as Black people, not needing to increase our value through our relationships with white people, but being able to confidently enter these relationships if we desired them as equals in the relationship. One of the first things one of my elders taught me that I had a hard time with, especially being engaged at the time to a white boy while I was still in the organization, right? And they were consciously trying to win me away from my relationship with this white man. They wasn't pussyfooting around. It was like, look, that's our objective, comrade. Like, we think it's politically inappropriate for you to be in the party still engaged to this white boy. And this white boy don't come to none of the meetings or nothing. We got political struggle with that. We ain't gonna tell you can't be in your relationship with your white boy. But what we are gonna do is try to politically win you away from that relationship. I was like, damn, right? And so I became the topic of many, many, many open political educations about the history of intimate relationships between Black people and white people, and how every relationship that we have, no matter if they friendships or no matter if they are sexual intimate relationships, what our conditioning teaches us as colonized people or non-white people is to, by default, place the needs of that white person in the center of the relationship. They become the subject of the relationship, and we automatically default to the object of the relationship. They become the center, and we tailor our behavior and everything around their needs. There's certain things that we won't talk about with our white partner that we would comfortably talk about with our Black friends and family. I was like, whoa, I ain't gonna get that deep into it, but I remember that clearly. I became as the lone Negro in that organization, still in a relationship with a white person. I became the topic of many, many political educations. They weren't condemning me. They weren't clowning my ass or nothing like that. They were like, we're gonna win you politically to understand why, as a member of the party, it's not beneficial to you. It's not beneficial to your sanity, to your confidence, nothing, to center a white man in your intimate relationship. And they did. I didn't, after that, it was a long battle. That don't mean I didn't resist. But what they did do through political education, man, that shit was really brilliant in hindsight. What they did do is really draw out and expose these conflicts and contradictions I was having with my partner before I ever met the party, and could not articulate, could not explain why I was perpetually frustrated, though he had not done anything wrong, right? There were things that I just couldn't articulate because I didn't have the language. I didn't have the language to articulate them, because we treat our intimate personal relationships as somehow separate from our political and social understanding of the world. Our relationships are impacted by our worldview. Our relationships are impacted by our acculturation, by where we grew up, by what we understand, our cultural norms, even with my Black ass husband, for that matter. Our cultural upbringing, our social cultural upbringing was a huge conflict in our relationship. It was huge. He was born in Philadelphia, raised in Philadelphia. I was raised in the South. That shit created more conflict than you can imagine. Shit that I would have never even thought about, but it irritated the way I was raised by my mama and daddy, particularly my daddy raising us like boys because he didn't have none, teaching us how to do things that, quote, only men should do or whatever. That shit was a source of huge irritation for my ex-husband. So culture matters. You know, our cultural upbringing, our social upbringing, our worldviews, what we see every day, it does impact our relationships, and we think it's a mystery why love leaves. And a lot of the time, it's those unspoken things that we can't give word to. And I'll be honest, the fact that we don't have any kind of political understanding in general, any kind of political understanding, deep political understanding, there's certain things that happen in our relationships we'll never understand. We'll just say, I don't know, I just fell out of love, and leave it at that. And I'm going to tell you, it was meeting the party and the party taking it upon itself to treat me as like their pet project. These were their words, to win me politically from this relationship that I was in with this white man that I was engaged to. It was the best thing that ever happened to me because he was toxic as fuck. But it wasn't overt. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't fucking me up. He wasn't knocking me upside the head or anything like that. And so again, I'm young and I didn't have a language to understand why I quote unquote love this man. And we even have to reevaluate what the fuck we be calling love. That's a political statement. We have to reevaluate that shit, because even though I quote unquote loved him, the way my love was manifest was the constant perpetual putting up with this shit that I didn't feel like I had to put up with, but I felt stuck. You know what I'm saying? And the party did what they do. They won me politically. As a matter of fact, I always thank the party for its role in me being becoming clean, because I was a functional junkie. Not only was I engaged to a white boy, I was a functional junkie. And when I mean functional junkie, the party gave me a party. The party gave me a job managing the health food store and what's the word I'm looking for? God damn. They gave me a job managing the health food store, and also I was the director of the wellness center, the wellness program for the party's nonprofits, African People's Education and Defense Fund. And while I'm managing the health food store and organizing very well, I might add, the wellness program, I was smoking crack 3 days a week, easily. On the weekends, I was going all the way in. But even during the work week, I was smoking crack every night. As soon as my daughter went to sleep, I was copping and smoking crack. That's what I mean when I say I was a functional junkie. I can still go to work, still pay my bills, still do what I got to do, but I was out there fucked up. You feel me? And when I came clean to the party, I don't know why I'm talking to y'all about this. When I came clean to the party, I never went through a 12-step program and this shit like that. The party, when I came clean to the party, I wish I had that shit on video. The chairman was like, he said, "Comrade," he said, "do you believe in the line of the party?" I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." He's like, "You a liar." I said, "What you mean I'm a liar?" He said, You can't believe in the line of the party." I was like, "What you mean?" He said, "Cassandra, didn't you just tell us you smoke crack?" I was like, "Yeah, I did. He said, "Well, then you don't believe in the line of the party. You don't believe that we have a future as a people. You don't believe that the party is going to play a key role in creating that future. You don't believe we can win." I was like, I don't understand. He said, we teach our people that the only reason our people succumb to addiction is because they have no hope for their future. It is a way to escape what they think is a terrible, inevitable end. That's why people succumb to addiction. That's why our people succumb to addiction, is they ain't got no hope. They ain't got no vision. They can't see a future. Here you are running our wellness program, managing our health food store, teaching in the wellness center, and your ass is at home smoking crack. He's like, you don't believe we can win. You don't believe that. I tell you, this is the first discussion after I came clean to the political bureau in the Central Committee. He was like, he was the first one to speak. He said, you don't believe this shit. He said, you just need to quit the party. I was like, I don't want to quit the party. I don't want to quit the party, Chair. He was like, why you don't want to quit the party? He was like, you don't believe this shit. Oh, child. He said, you don't believe this shit. He said, you don't believe in us. You don't believe in what we can accomplish. You don't believe in black people. You don't believe this shit. He's like, go on out there in the world and do you, girl. Go on out in the world and do you. I said, I don't want to lead the party, Chairman. I don't want to lead the party. He said, well, if you don't lead the party, he said, you're going to have to go through a rectification process, comrade. He said, you don't believe. He said, look, if you're going to stay up in here, you're going to go through a rectification process. I was like, what that mean? What that mean? Baby. That rectification process was no motherfucking joke. That shit was not for the faint at heart. That shit was no joke. It was brutal, is what it was. It was vicious, is what it was. And it lasted a long fucking time, that rectification process. But I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you what. The day I came clean to the party, which was, it was April 12th. It was April 12th of 2003. 2004. April 12th of 2004 was the day that I came clean to the party. That I called a meeting of the Central Committee, the Political Bureau. Came clean to the party. April 12th, 2004 was the last day I smoked crack. Don't mean I wasn't tempted. Don't mean I didn't have night terrors. When you hear junkies, like real junkies, talk about the nightmares, talk about the night terrors, there is I had night terrors for years. I got clean at the age of 28. At the age of 28, I got clean. 2 years later, I was in medical school. 3 years into medical school, so that's 5 years. 3 years into medical school, I was still having night terrors about smoking crack, about doing drugs, waking up feeling like I'd taken a hit off a pipe. I had done detoxing. I was doing juicing. I was doing juice fasting. I was hardcore fasting. 14-day fast, 21-day fast. And 5 years later, I was still having night terrors. That shit ain't no joke. The party saved my life. It kicked my ass, but it saved my life. That's how I got clean. Was to be covered and surrounded by community that was going to hold me accountable. Even if that shit hurt. The way they held me accountable, even if that shit hurt, it saved my fucking life. It saved my life. I don't know how I got on that. But anyway, all of that still circling back to this conversation, because I had this conversation the other night. It's the last thing I'll say about it. I had this conversation the other night with that same sister that I had the first conversation with, that I just found myself more annoyed than anything. I found like it like I was the 50-year-old having a conversation with an 18-year-old know-it-all. That's what it felt like in this conversation. That's why I mentioned the John Henrik Clarke quote, that I only debate with my equals. I only debate with my equals. Everyone else I teach. And if you ain't getting the hint, I will back off. That's what happened in the first conversation. I backed off the conversation. Because, and I know that sounds a little bit tough, right? If we were having a basic conversation then cool. There's no distinction that need be made. But that's not what was happening. And what it felt like, and at first I thought maybe it was my imagination and I was just being, too in my feels. Well, we linked up again this past, what's today? Today is Saturday. We linked up again earlier this week because there were friends of hers who called. Now, this is the context of this conversation that just happened. She was invited. I was asked to come to teach. These 3 people who had a friend in town. These 3 people who had a friend in town, they specifically wanted me to meet. This brother had been watching, he lives in New York, and had been watching my YouTube channel, and he was visiting from in town, and they were like, oh my God, we really want you to meet this brother. He's been watching your channel like we've been watching your channel, and so on and so forth. If you come, we'll cook, we'll buy some drinks, to thank you for your time. Okay. So when they came to where I was, they had this sister with them. So she was an invitee to a meeting we had already established was going to be about me, this brother wanting to pick my brain. Okay. So I knew, as they had stated, I was in the space as a teacher. And the men acted accordingly. Go figure. The 2 brothers acted accordingly. The Filipino woman acted in the capacity that they had asked me to be in the space. Right? And this woman that they brought with them, that I'm talking to y'all about, what I had just internalized as a frustration from our first meeting, because it was more social, and I just backed off of, anything that I was giving in the space. Like, you obviously don't need anything I'm offering in this space, so I'll just pull back, and we'll roll this conversation back to something more simplistic. You feel me? But I had just experienced kind of a frustration in how she was, because there was a bunch of us around the table, but how she kept directing her interjections towards me, right? There were like 7 of us sitting at the table, but she kept focusing her feedback towards me, right? That's why I mentioned the girl saying that some people respond with hatred when they perceive somebody smarter than them, or, whatever, right? And that's the energy that I felt. Like, there was all these multicolored people around the table, but every time she spoke, it was like a beeline right to me, right? I was like, let me just pull back. And I had analyzed that conversation, was like, okay, I don't know where that was coming from, especially it being the first time that we ever met, but whatever, right? We had this we were in this scenario a few days ago, Thursday or so. No, Friday is what it was. And even though she was a last minute invitee to a meeting we had already set days prior, about the focus of this conversation being that their friend was in town from New York and they wanted him to sit with me, have the opportunity to pick my brain, right? And this girl, now it was obvious. Now it wasn't, oh, this is the first time. And in her personality, in her presentation, she's very nice. She was like, oh, it's so good to see you, pat, pat, hug, hug. And as soon as she sat at the table, and this brother would ask me something, and I'm responding, but I'm still you're looking at everybody, conversating, whatever. But he asked me something specific, and I go into, how I respond. It may be long, but that's how I respond. And when I tell you every single time she began to, interject in the conversation, which was fine. That in and of itself wasn't a problem. Every time she would, participate in the conversation, it was always contrary, deliberately being contrary. So, for example, I said something to the effect of, you know, one of the things that I feel like is important to do right now is to establish new culture. That's a very basic statement. Ain't even that deep. To establish new culture, to create something new for a change. Is it possible to really create new culture, or isn't all culture just constantly changing and transforming? I was like, huh? I was like, is that a rhetorical question? What do you mean? Well, I'm just thinking about it a lot because I don't know that it's possible to create new culture. I mean, we can take old culture and change it. I was like, so there's never been any new culture? All culture is just a reflection of old culture, or a mutation of old culture? Is that what you're saying? Well, I'm just trying to understand. I was like, okay. I was like, and then he kind of piggybacked on her response. Well, according to the Tao, there's nothing new under the sun. And he started talking about Heru and Jehuti, and I was like, oh Lord, here we go. You feel me? But she said, is it even possible to create new culture? That was contrary. Right? And so I said, okay, I said, so, okay, you are from where you from. And there are cultural peculiarities that are specific to where you from. I said, those things that you, quote, call a part of your culture, were they not new at some point? They emerged from somewhere. And at that time that they emerged, were they not new? I don't understand what you mean. I said, okay, for example, take West Africa, take Ifa. At some point in human history, the established cultural tradition that we know as Ifa was new. I said, what gave rise to that new? She was like, well, the reason I say that culture isn't new is because it's just a natural emergence. It just emerges naturally. It's not deliberate. Culture is not created deliberately. I said, what? I said, wait, what? I said, what you mean? She said, culture just naturally emerges as a consequence of people being together in the environment and responding to the environment. So they ain't got no deliberate thought process into what, quote, they begin to identify as something that is going to remain as a cultural norm. Well, I mean, when you say it like that, I'm like, what you mean when I say it like that? I'm asking you a real ass question. You saying that culture is not deliberately created. That's what you said. Culture is not deliberately created. I said, baby, where do the 256 Odu come from? Did they just magically appear in a motherfucker dream? And then they just started repeating it to each other? No. It is our cultural, environmental, social relationships. And in the regularity of those relationships, AKA, we know that at this time of the year, if we plant food, that in this time of the year, the food will be bountiful. And it's a guarantee. If we do everything right together, that we'll all have food, we'll all eat. And then there's a moment after years of doing this, planting together, caring together, harvesting together. They say, this is so nice that food is just a guarantee for us. We should thank some spirits. Like maybe there's some spirits helping us out. We should thank the Mother Earth herself. We should take the harvest and 10% of that, we should give it back to her in the form of offering so her little creatures, her little animals can eat too. And somebody say, damn, that sounds like a good idea. I like that. And another person say, that is a really nice idea. Why don't we add some song and some dance to that offering that we give? That sounds like a good ass idea. That's nice. And then it becomes a part of this cultural experience that is agreed upon and deliberate in its creation. I said, what are you talking about right now? Well, I'm just saying, I mean, all the culture that exists now has just been around for so long. Can we really create something new? I said, that's something different than what you said earlier. And it's still problematic, what you just said. It's still problematic. The established cultural accepted norms that we all live by can be changed. And transformation and change does not denote an inability to create something new. Yes, even as something changes and transforms, it's still new. I said, I don't understand. I don't understand how something this simple, how me making a simple statement about how we're in this period where we are given the opportunity to create new culture because it can stand out amidst all the noise. We can create new culture. I don't understand how this becomes a topic of a debate. That was very simple. I felt like self-explanatory statement that didn't even require that much time spent on it. But okay. I said, so let me give you an example. Maybe you can relate to instead of EFI. I said, when I got married, my ex-husband and I had been in the same organization. And we were very deliberate about wanting to create new and exciting cultural practices for our family. We had gone to see, I don't know how many of y'all know Sarah Suit and Seti, but Seti was big at the time. And Sarah Suit and Seti made a statement that forever stuck with us. He said, to participate in the traditions of your enemies is to tell your ancestors that you have sided with their murderers. To participate in the traditions of your enemies is to tell your ancestors that you have sided with their murderers. I was like, God damn. We can't celebrate no shit no more. We ain't got no excuse. We ain't got no excuse. So my ex-husband and I, we were talking about just for our family. So my ex-husband and I sat down. That was deliberate. That was thoughtful. It was in response to this frustration that we were having about our social circumstances. We deliberately sat down and said, we're not going to deprive our children of the heartfelt, good, warm feelings of holidays, but we had to create new holidays that were not in conflict with what we believed. And so that's what we did. We mapped out a whole year of holidays that were going to be African-centered, revolutionary, rebellious holidays that we were going to hype up for our kids so that they wouldn't feel, quote, left out when everybody was doing Christmas and all of this bullshit, you feel me, that we too were going to lavish them with gifts and do all the things, but it was going to be from an African-centered, EFI-centered spiritual perspective, spiritual political perspective. The first thing that we did, which is what I do to this day, since 2008. Thank you for your membership, Louise. Thank you so much. The first thing that we did was like, we can't celebrate Thanksgiving no more. We can't celebrate Thanksgiving no more. That was the first holiday that we staged opposition to. So what we did, we didn't make our kids participate in because Thanksgiving is a hard one. The food, we in the South, the food, the cooking, the visiting, everybody you know, that's a hard one. So my ex-husband and I, we would fast from sun up to sun up for 24 hours. We would fast on Thanksgiving and we would break fast on that Friday, on Black Friday. I have been doing my Thanksgiving fast, my solidarity with the indigenous population, solidarity fast every year since 2008. Since 2008. You feel me? When our kids were at home, we would let them go to like our family members' houses who we knew was cooking or whatever and pick them up, later in the day or the next day. But we fasted. We would sometimes take juice as a fast, but we would fast from all food for 24 hours. That remains a practice that I still engage in. And I actually call on people to participate in, even if it's only 4 or 5 hours of that day or whatever. If you can do the whole day, awesome. If you can't, fine. Just make an I call on people to make an outside statement of solidarity, a live public statement of solidarity of why I am refraining from food on Thanksgiving. That was the first holiday that we decided with we did celebrate Kwanzaa, but we also did we didn't celebrate Valentine's Day. So we were like, okay, how are we going to celebrate Black love without celebrating Valentine's Day? And so what we did at the time, we were still like hardcore Garveyites, and Garvey, as far as we both were concerned, was like our chief hero. And because Amy Jake Garvey, his second wife, gave us the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey, we said that we were going to celebrate our Black love on the wedding day of Marcus Mosiah Garvey and Amy Jake Garvey. I think their marriage day was like May 12th or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but but that was what we decided, was we were going to celebrate our Black love day on our most prized hero and heroine, Marcus Mosiah Garvey and Amy J. Garvey. So we celebrated our Black love day on the anniversary of their wedding day, right? We did, and not only did we make these multiple events for our home, once we built the Black Star Action Network, we started calling on Black people to break ties with colonial traditions, colonial holidays, and that we would start doing events around these holidays that we created. How else do you establish new culture unless you are simultaneously challenging old culture? So we was like, look, we establishing a new revolutionary culture, and you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about your kids feeling left out, because we're gonna have something for the kids. You understand? We're gonna have something for the couples. We're gonna have something for the grown-ups. You feel me? And it's gonna be lit and fun, and we're gonna have live entertainment and this and that. And for 4 years, that's what we did when we were organizing events. Was everybody could come to every event. There was something for the kids so they wasn't bored. You feel me? We did that. And so when I give her this example, she was like, but is it really new? Or is it just a recreation of something old? I was like, okay, all right, you are being contrary. That's what I told her. I said, you're being contrary. I'm not being contrary. I'm really trying to understand. Are you really, though? So we changed the subject. But this went on all night. I'm like, it didn't matter how simplistic the statement was that I made. On GP, she was taking the opposing position. Really? I'm like, why they do that? Why do that? First of all, we the only 2 Black women in here. There was a Filipino sister. There was her Black husband and his Black best friend from New York, who was mixed race. Like, but I'm finding that my attention is diverted from the whole group to you, because every time you quote are making an offering to the conversation, it's contrary directly to something that I've said, not to the other 3 people sitting at the table. Just me. Anyway, I didn't mean to talk for forever about that, but I was just, talking to you guys. Let me reflect on some of the shit y'all talking about here. Let's see. I love the idea of creating safe space for healing, normalizing, especially for Black Americans. I hate when people say there's nothing new under the sun. Isn't that it sounds like some colonial shit to me. Even when he said it, he was like, well, according to the Tao, there's nothing new under the sun. That's dumb as fuck. I'm sorry. And we used to accept that. That is the most outlandish shit I've ever heard. And it sounds like some colonial shit. It sounds like some shit that is created to prevent people from evolving. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like some dogma, some sacralized dogma to prevent you from evolving, to prevent you from becoming new. What you mean there's nothing new under the sun? There's a baby born every second. They knew. They ain't never been here before, won't never be here again. What the fuck is you talking about? Anyway, that blew my mind that was his interjection. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Is that because she's a reflection of you? whatever, maybe. Okay. Wow, you really totally changed your life. That's miraculous. I'm glad you met them. Finally, I catch alive. My ADD has me acting like a crackhead. Hey, lovely, just joining. Did you? No, I'm not. Nuh-uh. I think I changed the name of it. Yeah, I did change the name of this. Let's see. Okay. All right. So let's get into um that's as outlandish as saying humans aren't capable of change or claiming you hate change. Yes, Vaoni. Yeah. All right, let's get into this because here I am an hour and damn near 20 minutes again, and they did what I came up on here to do. Now I'm gonna stop engaging y'all. Okay, so I'm gonna have to read y'all live chat contributions later because otherwise I will stay distracted. All right, I'm gonna pick up where we left off. I have a ton of shit to do today. I told you I got rent to raise. Oh, I wanted to say after the live last night because I wasn't getting alerts on my phone. After the live last night, there were several people who made generous contributions to this crisis that I'm in, and I really appreciate you for it. And I wanted to shout you out. I don't see there's a couple of y'all I don't see on here, but Lisa Jacob, Aquara Leon, Claudia Ankara, Devin, and Yancy all sent in contributions last night, and I want to thank you guys for heeding the call for me. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. Okay, so I want to pick up where I left off in the reading of the Serpent so we can be in the energy of preparing for the Serpentine new year we're running into. The birth and death goddesses Isis and Nephthys became identified with the dual serpent mother of life and afterlife. Only they could help the soul through the section of the underworld inhabited by the serpent deities, Egypt's version of the Nagas. The Mahabharata depicts a hero seeking immortality in a similar underworld called the City of Serpents, where the dual mother of life and death wove the web of nights and days with black and white thread, binding them with the red thread of life. The Akkadian goddess Ninhursag, she who gives life to the dead, was also called the mistress of serpents, as yet another form of the Kadru and Kadi. Babylon's version of her made her a dark twin of the heaven goddess Ishtar, calling her Lamia or Lamashtu, great lady, daughter of heaven. Cylinder seals. Cylinder seals showed her squatting, Kali-like, over her mate, the god Pazuzu, he of the serpent penis. As another lord of death, he gave himself up to be devoured by the goddess. The image of the male snake deity enclosed or devoured by the female gave rise to a superstitious notion about the sex life of snakes, reported by Pliny and the solemnly believed in Europe, even up to the 20th century, that the male snake fertilizes the female snake by putting his head in her mouth and letting her eat him. Whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa. Damn. Oh. The male serpent deity became the phallic consort of the Great Mother, sometimes a father of races because he was the mother's original mate. In some myths, he was no more than a living phallus she created for her own sexual pleasure. In other myths, she allowed him to take part in the work of creation or to fertilize her world-producing womb. When the serpent creator turned arrogant, and tried to pretend that he alone made the universe, the goddess punished him, bruising his head with her heel. Oh my God! God! Fuck! Oh shit! God damn! Hold on. Hold on. God, motherfucking damn! Oh shit! God damn! Is that where that comes from? Shit. Is that where that comes from? Damn. Somebody do a quick Google search for the scripture in Genesis that talks about God's punishment of the serpent. After the serpent like slick talked Eve into eating the apple, and God is disseminating his judgment on Adam and Eve and the serpent. Somebody Google the scripture where God levies his punishment upon the serpent. Somebody do that for me really quick while I keep reading. All right. Okay. So when the serpent creator turned arrogant and tried to pretend that he alone made the universe, the goddess punished him, bruising his head with her heel and banishing him to the underworld. On this version of the creation myth, the Jews based their notion of Eve's progeny bruising the serpent's head, and the rabbinical opinion that the serpent was Eve's first lover and the true father of Cain. Thank you, Veoni. Genesis 3:14. Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all animals. Oh, God damn. Cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and you will eat dust all the days of your life. What does 3:15 say, Tajali? What does 3:16 say, Janet? Can you copy and paste in the chat like Veoni did? Okay. Actually, the serpent was worshipped in Palestine long before Yahweh's cult arose. Oh boy, y'all, this shit about to get deep. Listen, actually, the serpent was worshipped in Palestine long before Yahweh's cult arose. Early Hebrews adopted the serpent god. Early Hebrews adopted the serpent god. All their contemporaries revered, and the Jewish priestly clan of Levites were the sons of the great serpent, i.e., of the Leviathan, the wiggly one. He was worshipped in combination with the goddess, the moon. The Bible shows that Yahweh was a hostile rival of the serpent Leviathan, for the two gods battled each other. Psalms 74:14, 89:10, Isaiah 51:9. They would engage in another final battle at Doomsday, Isaiah 27:1 and Revelations 12. 3:15 says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Okay, I got another assignment. You know that flag, the war flag? I think it's like a vet flag that says it has an image of a coiled snake, and it says, "Don't tread on me." Somebody do a Google search really quick and see what the origin of that flag is. To the woman, he said, I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain, you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Damn. Somebody Google really quick the origin of the "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Thank you, sisters, for doing that. Okay. Another Jewish name, American independence from the British. Interesting. Does it say what the symbolism of the serpent and the heel of the serpent is? God, I'm tired. Actually, the serpent, let's see. Another Jewish name for the great serpent was Nehushtan, described as the god of Moses. Hebrew Nahash, or serpent, descended from the ancient Vedic serpent king Nahusha, once the supreme ruler of heaven, until he was cast down to the underworld by a rival. Nehushtan was the same god whose image Moses made a fiery serpent, according to Numbers 21:8. The Israelites worshipped him until the reign of Hezekiah, when the new priesthood cut down the groves and break in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made, according to 2 Kings 18:4. Yet serpent worship continued in Israel. So, seraph, the Hebrew word for the divine fiery serpent, used to mean an earth-fertilizing lightning snake, and later became an angel. The seraphim were originally snake spirits or serpent spirits, like those of the caduceus created by Hermes, the great serpent, and copied by Mosaic tradition. Jewish medallions of the 1st and 2nd centuries BC represented Jehovah as a serpent god, like the snake-tailed winds of the Greeks. Jews of the Asian Minor said their Jehovah was the same as Zeus Zabazius, the serpent god of Phrygia. Some Jewish Gnostics early in the Christian era maintained that the post-exilic Jehovah was no god, but was a devil, the usurper of the original kingdom of the wise serpent. Oh my God. Damn. Whoa. Now this is gonna be some more wormhole shit. Much Gnostic literature praised the serpent of Eden for bringing the light of knowledge to humanity against the will of a tyrannical God who wanted to keep humans ignorant. This view of the Eden myth dated back to Sumerio-Babylonian sources that said man was made by the Earth Mother out of mud and placed in the garden to dress it and keep it, according to Genesis 2:15, for the gods, because the gods were too lazy to do their own farming and wanted slaves to plant, harvest, and give them offerings. The gods agreed that their slaves should never learn the godlike secret of immortality, lest they get above themselves and be ruined for work. Good damn! Whoa! Oh my God! Yo. Damn. She say the gods agreed that their slaves should never learn the godlike secret of immortality, lest they get above themselves and be ruined for work. Therefore, as the Epic of Gilgamesh reports, the gods gave death to humanity, and life they kept in their own hands. God damn. In one of the interwoven Genesis stories, God was not the one, but the many, the Elohim, or gods and goddesses. The God of Eden remarked to his divine colleagues, "Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. Therefore he must be ejected from the garden at once, lest he take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever." Genesis 3:22. Y'all, I got goosebumps everywhere. Listen. this is in the Bible, apparently. Genesis 3:22. This is a quote. "Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. Therefore, he must be ejected from the garden at once, lest he take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever." The serpent's teachings would have led man to conquer death and become godlike against the will of the Elohim. The hypostasis of the archons, showed that the serpent was a totemic form of the goddess, apparently taking pity on her doomed creature and seeking to instruct him in the attainment of eternal life. Y'all, goddamn. Whew. The female spiritual principle came in the snake, the instructor, and it taught them, saying, "You shall not die, for it was out of jealousy that he said this to you. Rather, your eyes shall open, and you shall become like gods, recognizing good and evil." Then the arrogant ruler, God, cursed the serpent and the woman. Some Gnostic sects honored both Eve and the serpent for their efforts on behalf of humanity. The present form of the biblical story is obviously a much revised version of the original tales of the Great Mother and her serpent. Babylonian icons showed the goddess attended by her snake, offering man the food of immortality. The pyramid text said it was the serpent who offered the food of eternal life. As Ophion or Ophi, he was the ancestor of the African serpent god Obi, whose name is still preserved in the voodoo magic system of Obi. The Bible uses a Hebrew version of the name Obi for the familiar spirit of the witch of Endor, and the Vulgate renders this word python. In Dahomey, the primal mother creatress Mauru was supported by a great serpent. Gnostic accounts of the Eden myth use the Aramaic pun identifying Eve, the teacher, and the serpent, Hawa, mother of all living, Hawa, to instruct, and Hawea, the serpent. Eve's name in Arabic still combines the idea of life, Hayat, with the name of the serpent, Hayat. Hippolytus viewed the serpent as a feminine logos, the wise word of Eve. This is the mystery of Eden. This is the river that flows out of Eden. This also the mark that was set on Cain, who sacrificed the God of this world did not accept, whereas he accepted the bloody sacrifice of Abel. For the Lord of this world delights in blood. This serpent is he who appeared in the latter days in human form at the time of Herod. Arabian tradition identified the food of immortality with the female uterine blood. There we go again. Everywhere. The Arabian tradition identified the food of immortality with the uterine blood colored royal purple, and the mother's uterine garden with the moon temple at Merib in Sheba. Legend said that the serpents of Sheba were purple with the divine essence and lived in trees. The people were serpent-like with forked tongues, great wisdom, and longevity. From Sheba might have come the mysterious life-giving substance called Sheba in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Dispensed by the wife Nepishtim, or Noah, who had become the only immortal man. Okay. Had become the only immortal man. His wife, therefore, was a goddess. When this holy matriarch gave Sheba, oh my God, y'all. Listen, from Sheba have come the mysterious life-giving substance called Sheba in the Epic of Gilgamesh, dispensed by the wife of Utnapishtim, aka Noah, who had become the only immortal man. His wife, therefore, was a goddess. When this holy matriarch gave Sheba to Gilgamesh, he shed his old diseased skin like a snake and emerged from it reborn. Persians also maintained the symbolic connections between menstrual blood and the serpent's secret longevity. Mithraists claimed immortality was conferred by the blood of the sacrificial bull, but a serpent was there to collect the blood as it flowed from the bull's body. And this blood was imitation menstrual blood in that it was delivered by the moon. Immortality was the special province of the skin-shedding serpent and the blood-bestowing goddess from earliest times. Some of the very oldest traditions of the great serpent identified him with the earth's intestines. Archaic serpent gods like the Egyptian Apep and the Sumerian Kumbaba were said to resemble intestines. In this connection, the biblical phrase for birth or rebirth was separation from the bowels. Whoa. Serpents understood how to restore life to the dead, according to the myths of Crete, where the sorcerer Polydos learned the serpent's secret and won great honor at the Minoan court by bringing the dead prince Glaucus back to life. Many Gnostic traditions identify the serpent with Jesus. In the Pistis Sophia, Jesus was the serpent who spoke to Eve from the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, which were in the paradise of Adam. Jewish Nazians, or serpent worshippers, said the serpent was the Messiah. Woo! God. Oh my God. I told you I had not read this before reading it to y'all. Okay, so I'm up in here subduing this mage. Y'all just got to give me a minute. Oh my God. Oh my God. Lord have mercy. Lord. What is the Christians going to do, child? What they gonna do? What they gonna do, child? Oh my God. Many Gnostic traditions identify the serpent with Jesus. In the Pistis Sophia, Jesus was the serpent who spoke to Eve. Who spoke to Eve from the tree of knowledge and the tree of life, which were in the paradise of Adam. Jewish Nazaeans, or serpent worshippers, said that the serpent was the Messiah. Magic papyri called him world ruler, the great serpent, leader of the gods, God of the gods. Some Christians held that the serpent was the father of Jesus, having overshadowed the bed of the Virgin Mary and begotten having overshadowed the bed of the Virgin Mary and begotten the human form of the Savior. So what's next? God let his own son be murdered because he helped Eve? The puzzle is puzzling. Not only that, they saying the serpent, it wasn't an angel that came to get Eve, to get Mary pregnant, that it was a great serpent. It was a great serpent that came to get Mary pregnant, and so that he could be gotten in the human form of the Savior. Okay. Man. Child, Mary got knocked up by a great serpent. That's how she gave birth to Jesus. Oh my God. These traditions were still extant, though hidden in Renaissance times. Bartel Bruyne's Gnostic symbolic painting of the Annunciation showed an unmistakably hermetic serpent caduceus as the rod extended toward Mary by the impregnating angel Gabriel. The dove, poised in a halo in its tip, making a sign like a cross between the fairy wand and the emblem of Venus. Damn. This made a combined symbol of the male and female mystery of the serpent and the dove. Fuck. Oh. This made a combined symbol of the male and female mystery of the serpent and the dove, which was inserted into the mouth of Jesus, according to Matthew 10:16. Many theologians claim the crucified serpent Nehushtan was a prophecy of Jesus. God damn. Quote, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. John 3:15. In the 16th century, German smiths made golden thalers with a crucified Christ on one side and a crucified serpent on the other, hinting that they were two faces of the same Redeemer. Oh my God. Hold on. Oh. And listen, hinting that they, Christ and the servant, the crucified Christ and the crucified serpent, hinting that they were two faces of the same Redeemer. I got chills everywhere. Ooh, everywhere. Oh. Goddamn. Every mythology had some form of the world serpent, like the Hermetic or Gnostic serpent encircling the world egg. What's the world egg? Our little logo right here, the temple logo. This is the world egg. Surrounded by the Ouroboros, or the world serpent. That's the cosmic egg in the middle, the sigil. Here, let me open it up. That's the cosmic egg in the center, the sigil, surrounded by the world serpent, or the Ouroboros. That's our logo, the Temple of Evolutionary Emergence. Let's see. Like the Hermetic or Gnostic serpent encircling the world egg, he was a basic Indo-European religious symbol. Norse myth called him the Midgard worm, who encircled the whole round of Middle Earth, or Midgard, his tail in his mouth. Russians called him the Koshki, the deathless encircler of the world. This seems to have been a variation of the Japanese dragon of sea tides, Koshi. Egyptians called him Sata, or Satan, or the Tuat, on whose back the sun god rode through the underworld each night. Greeks called him Okinos, the sea serpent of the outermost ocean. Often the Heavenly Father assumed this serpent form, like Zeus, Melikios, worshipped as a gigantic serpent in the 4th century BC. In the shape of a serpent, he became the consort of Chthonian Persephone. He also begot heroes on mortal women. Alexander the Great was allegedly fathered by God, who in the form of a serpent impregnated his mother, Queen Olympias. The pyramid text spoke of the serpent as both subterranean and celestial. In his heavenly aspect, he was a dispenser of immortality. As the divine phallus in perpetual erection, he was the tree of life, or the axis mundi, a pole passing through the center of heaven and earth. That is Father Heaven coupled to the goddess's hub. His eye was seen as the pole star. In 3000 BC, the pole star was Alpha Draconis, the serpent's eye. The Mahabharata said the pole star to which the yoke of the world was fixed was the supreme snake, Vasuki. The same snake was the phallic god who stirred the uterine abyss at creation, according to the Vedas. Like the god of Genesis, the Vedic deity Indra claimed to have cast down the great serpent from heaven into the world, encircling the abyss of the outer ocean. Like the Bible story, this myth reinterpreted the original meaning of the serpent as a descending, fertilizing phallus. The sexual image of the phallus serpent's head as the jewel in the lotus ramified into many versions of the myth of Menarche, the belief that menstruation was initiated by copulation with a supernatural snake. According to this imagery, the divine male serpent accompanied a blood red jewel in his head. Hindus said all the snakes carried blood red rubies of immortality in their heads. Germans remembered this Aryan lore and said a serpent with a magic stone in its head would be found at the root of the hazel tree, witchwood, near mistletoe. The serpent stone was sacred to the moon and was identified with the philosopher's stone, which could bring eternal life. Remnants of the serpent's phallic symbolism appeared in medieval magic charms, such as the conviction that female diseases could be cured by applying to the sufferer a staff with which a snake had been beaten. Oh my God. In 13th century France, a snake on a pole, like the Ophites image of Christ, was carried in triumphal procession during Easter week to the baptismal font of the church. Sometimes the fetish was an enormous stuffed serpent, like a Chinese carnival dragon. Churchmen tried to assimilate the custom by saying that the serpent was the devil driven from his kingdom by the passion of Christ. But this was but a lame explanation for a rite that was already old when Christianity was new. Early Ophite Christians adopted serpent worship and claimed Moses as the father of their sect, alleging that Moses taught the Jews to worship the serpent in the wilderness. Besides, the serpent had certainly given knowledge to Adam and Eve, and therefore was a savior of humanity, an earlier incarnation of Christ, who also suffered at God's hands for the enlightenment he brought. The Ophites' holy serpents were made to twine around the bread of the Eucharist and were adored hanging on crosses. Ophite colleagues still existed in Bithynia in the 5th century AD, when bishops began leading mobs to wreck the Ophite churches. Medieval Hermeticists worshipped the serpent as Ouroboros, king of magic, a syncretic mixture of the Ophites and Ophian, and the Greeks Hermes, the Phoenicians Taut, the Egyptians Tuat, and other ancient snake-tailed gods, including the underground oracle Python. Ouroboros was linked with the Chinese Pi dragon, symbol of the universe, carved on jade discs as a dragon or serpent eating its own tail. This may have been the prototype for the serpent Python and the Pythagoreans' worship of the pi, Pi, as the mystic numerical principle of the circle. Two serpents eating each other's tails combined the yin-yang mandala with the caduceus, expressing the bisexual nature of Hermes, and all cyclic alterations, birth, death, summer, winter, light, dark, etc. The Ouroboros was still pictured under the earth in certain European areas, and some people claimed to be able to feel his slow movements through their feet when they stood in ancient shrines. So there you go. That is what we have, and it's perfect timing because it's 2 hours in and I'm done. I'm cooked. I'm tired. So that's the end of the section on the serpent. That is the end on the section of the serpent. So maybe a little later, I will come back on and talk to you about what I intended to talk to you about the night before last, which are practical preparations for our entry into the Chinese year of the wood snake, right? So more astrology, maybe pull a couple of tarot cards for you guys. But this was good. This was a good ass reading. This is a good ass reading. This is a good ass reading. Yeah, I'm up in here. I'm up in here bewildered, child. I'm up in here bewildered. Okay. Yeah, but I feel like we need to get up in this get up in this book. The Women's Encyclopedia Missing Secrets be jamming. Child, listen. I read the other day. She has a section in here. I'm gonna read to you eventually. She got a section in here called transvestitism. When I tell you, ain't nothing sacred. When I tell you that there is nothing that we think we know that we actually know. There ain't nothing, there ain't no space that has not been corrupted by this shit. This section on transvestitism had me fucked up in the game. Had me fucked up in the game. Yes, it did. Let me read a short one to you. This one is in the Women's Encyclopedia Missing Secrets, since we got 1 minute. On the trident. You know, I'm always talking about the wicked trident, right? The wicked trident. This one's on the trident. The symbol of the triple phallus, the trident. The symbol of the triple phallus displayed by any god whose function it was to mate with the triple goddess. Okay. Listen. The only motherfucker that was supposed to have a trident was he whose function it was to pleasure and mate with the triple goddess, a masculine counterpart of the triangle. In India, the trident bearer was Shiva, bridegroom of threefold Kali. In the West, the trident passed to such underground or abysmal gods as Hades, Pluto, and Neptune. Oh, and Poseidon. And after them, the Christian devil, their composite descendant, received the trident. Celtic myth retained the original phallic significance of the triple key. The trident is called the triple key to the holy door. What's the holy door? The triple key to the holy door? It's the three penises reserved to copulate with the triple goddess. Okay? The holy door is her vagina. Okay? Like Shiva, the primitive Irish shamrock guard, Tre Fuel Neged, Tre Okachir, was the bearer of the triple key. Of the triple key. Symbol of his door was the trefoil that the Arabs called shamrock, and the Hindus worshipped as an emblem of Kali thousands of years before the first Aryans came to Ireland. The Irish god was quaintly assimilated to Christianity by a Middle Irish text claiming that he appeared to Fintan, king of Tara, on the day of Christ's death, bearing a sacred branch with 3 fruit and stone tablets of Celtic property law. Because the trident was generally recognized as a phallus in pagan tradition, Renaissance devils were often pictured with 3-pronged or forked penises. 3-pronged or forked penises. The devil cum membro bifurcato was mentioned in 1520, and a number of inquisitional judges said witches copulated with devils whose phalli had 2 or more points. Y'all. Oh, this book, child. The section on transvestitism is too long for right now. I mean, it's not that long, but it's too long for me to read right now. I'm about to wrap this up. Sky Tonight is an app that all may want to download. Sky Tonight is an app that all may want to download. I love this book, y'all. It be having me beside myself quite often, I'll be honest. Ooh, this other section on Vesica Pisces. Vesica Pisces. Damn. I believe y'all at that. I gotta. And it's 2:00 already. Yeah, I got shit to do. All right, y'all. This was fun. Thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for rocking with me. I may or may not do another live tonight. Just depends on how I feel after I get done doing shit. Okay? All right. Peace. Love you. Do your little research. Start reading about your little serpent. Start Googling snake symbolism. Start Googling snake mythology, snake spiritual symbolism. Let me see. Start doing that. Because this, especially that read we just did of the serpent as the Messiah, baby. The serpent as the Messiah, the serpent as the Christ, and the serpent as the 2 equal faces of the 2 equal faces of the Messiah. And so if the first Messiah already came, then what is the second coming Messiah? The second coming. Could it be the serpent face of the crucified serpent Messiah? God, that shit gagged me. The serpent as the Messiah. Yeah, that shit gagged me. That his birth through his mama Mary was his human form. So now, is it his serpent form that's coming to save and redeem? Is that what's happening? Is his serpent form that's coming to save and redeem? I wonder. Yeah, I'm in here gagged. Fully subdued. Fully subdued, child. Let me get up out of here. I got shit to do. All right. Love you guys. See you later. Thanks for listening to me rant. All right. Peace.